We're now moving into the recovery portion of today's event. And I don't want to spill any beans on anything, so I'll just move on with saying I'm truly honored to introduce Bob Hughes, CEO of Ask Wellness Society. Many of you from around this region, I'm sure, know of him. He is a leader in health, recovery, and community development. He's been doing it for 25 years, so 4 less years than I was born, right? Just kidding. His work has been, oh my gosh, I don't know what he hasn't done. He's been spanning across doing addiction counseling, harm reduction, youth support, housing initiatives. He's transformed services here in Kamloops and beyond, and even Penticton for vulnerable populations all across really the BC interior. He's a visionary in this field. And Bob is also instrumental in bringing TRU and UBCO together into our Maverick project, which we will share with you today about this mysterious project. He's really helped create new research and recovery opportunities for individuals impacted by substance use. And today he's going to share his insights into Ask Wellness's recovery program, including some maybe medical cannabis related information. And he's really been supportive in this innovative approach. He's a pioneer, really, and we need to take steps to do stuff like this to make change. So with deep respect, Bob, where are you? Oh, good. I can't see any of you out there. It's kind of dark, like you can barely see people out there, but I'm assuming people are there. So anyway, okay. You're all there, right? Okay, good. You came back? Okay, good. Okay. Go ahead and stand
up. Afternoon, everybody. How's that? Well, I'm really happy to be here today. I mean, it's a little intimidating, of course, to follow the speakers before me, and so my way of kind of presenting is really just from my heart. I don't necessarily have anything well prepared when I come and speak. So bear with me, and maybe it's a good thing that I can't see you. You guys could be asleep, or you could be grimacing, or you could be texting and saying, he just said probably the most offensive thing, or he's going to lose his job. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about how did Ask Wellness get to this position where we are working with UBC and TRU on providing some innovative research and update. But I also want to talk a little bit about, obviously, the organization that has created the Maverick, and I want to acknowledge my incredible colleagues that are here today that really are the heart and soul of Ask Wellness Society and the work that we do across the region. And I think most importantly, these guys that are going to come up and talk about the real life experience of tackling their substance misuse, facing some of the demons that come with obviously finding yourself without a home and finding yourself really feeling quite hopeless, and we hear that. My motto has been, and really truly is recovery is possible. And as much as that might sound a little ambitious in the face of 9 years living, all of us, within one of the most challenging times in our society with the opiate crisis and a toxic drug supply crisis, to set a path forward to create recovery. I started in this work as Florian has suggested over 25 years ago. My family came from a background. My dad was a physician. My mom was a psych nurse. And in fact, basically, I kind of grew up in the Homewood Sanitarium in Guelph, Ontario, where my parents were never really around. And so literally would spend after school walking around a mental health institution. So it is very deep in my life in terms of helping people and supporting people in their journey. So with Ask Wellness, obviously, it started out as the AIDS Society of Kamloops. I was the 7th employee with the society back in 2008, 2009. And we've grown really to move to not leave harm reduction, but our whole philosophy has been about trying to create programming and a culture, both within our staff, but also across all of our programming that is streets, homes, health, employment. And we know that's not a linear pathway for many people that have struggled with barriers such as mental health, substance use. These are lifelong challenges that people face. And so our creation of programming has really been about trying to break down the barriers, the systemic barriers, to create a way for people that literally have a bag on their back or a shopping cart and feel like they have nothing, to be able to manifest a life that includes housing, healthcare, community, and a sense of purpose. And that has been really our life's work within Ask, is to try to develop that. And so over the course of 15 years, 18 years, we have over 800 units of housing. We've created enough programming where there's over 430 staff. And all of this team works with the same kind of philosophy where hope is possible and supporting people to reach their potential. And for many people in Kamloops area, you think all we do is the harm reduction. But what I would suggest is that one of the main challenges in our province has been able to link harm reduction to treatment and recovery. And many of us may remember the days of the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars was really our foundational approach, our framework that was set forth by Philip, it's escaping me now, is the mayor of Vancouver back in the early 2000s. And his whole idea around tackling that opiate crisis, the heroin crisis at the time, was to create the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars: harm reduction, treatment and recovery, enforcement, and prevention. And somehow over the last 10, 15 years, we have abandoned that framework, and we have really set forth with individual pillars not working together. And what we have seen in us kind of creating the Maverick as a recovery center was that the journey from harm reduction services that we really needed and are so vital to trying to save people's lives is, how do you help people beyond just a harm reduction approach to actually see people entering into treatment, into recovery, and then employment and gaining autonomy. And so about 5 years ago, we set forth with really trying to create a recovery center that was different than what we would traditionally see as treatment. And so many of us know that treatment historically has been something structured in the United States to be 30 days. And that was really not anything scientifically based. That was based on the health insurance companies being able to bill how a treatment center would run. So doing 30 days of treatment. But anybody who's gone through treatment, and many people have repeatedly, when you have serious substance misuse, that you've gone to residential treatment, you've done supportive recovery, so often they are very narrow in windows, and they're an isolated little setup where you obviously can gain tremendous skills and benefits, but to translate that into real life living experience and the skills requires a great deal of time and a sense of community and a sense of safety. And so thus what we did is we were able to acquire, with the support of the province, we were able to acquire the Maverick, and that was a fitting name, I would believe, based on some of the things we're doing, particularly around cannabis, is to call it the Maverick. And it was a motel that we've, over this time, have now converted, initially with no funding. Guys like Peter Cameron Inglis, who was on our board of directors, we did not have funding to create a supportive recovery, but we believed we could do it. And inch by inch, dollar by dollar, we've created a 3-phase recovery center that is abstinence-based, that is targeting and supporting people that need it the most, and that is publicly accessible. And so we now have a 43-bed supportive recovery, 3-phase. We've been able to seek funding to support not only that initial 90-day and more intensive phase, but we've been able to recognize that people transition into the 2nd phase of the program, which is up to 6 months, and it's an ability for people just to live in their recovery, to take their time to recover from the harms and the both physically and psychological that comes from such serious dependency. And then the really ambitious part that was finally manifest for us is the opportunity for people to get access to employment, supports to actually engage in finding a job and taking your time and receiving the supports to do it. We all know and have heard about housing first, but I believe the philosophy is jobs first, and that is with the idea that people can, everybody is capable of doing some form of work. And that work doesn't necessarily have to be just labor work, but something that makes them feel and gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of, I am economically able to support myself. I am able to participate and be within community. And so through the support of, and again, this is one of one of the beauties, I think, of a nonprofit is that you can create, with the pursuit of funding, you can create your vision. And what we've done with 7 different funding sources is create this long-term recovery center. And so when it came to doing the cannabis research, which I think most of you here and want to know, is this started between Michael and I believing that the use of cannabis in a recovery setting, whether it would be early in a person's recovery or it would be as part of in a structured environment, was something that we should look at as having cannabis being available. And so we started, and I'm going to say it, I may get, it may not be well received by government, but that's fine by me. We did this in a parking lot where somebody who was so desperately needing to have access to cannabis, that was living in chronic pain as a paraplegic, and the idea was he wanted to use cannabis. And so that was the beginning for Michael and I to say, listen, let's try this in terms of making it accessible for people to get the type of cannabis. And this is when you hear Michael talk about it. The man is a visionary in how to use cannabis for a helpful and a very appropriate for each individual. And so it isn't just simply people being able, using cannabis in any of any variety. He's been treating and looking at each individual and finding the right type of cannabis. And we hear Dr. Mitchell talk about the variations and the diverse tools that we have with cannabis when it comes to helping folks. And so that then evolved into saying, let's bring that into the Maverick as a tool for people. And as it noted up on the note here is, this isn't my first foray in trying to see cannabis and using substitution therapy. Back in the early 2000s, we tried it with youth in a program called Meth Kickers, and that was being able to see people who were at that time with a crystal meth epidemic happening, is to say for young people who would really struggle with being fully abstinent from substances, were saying, I want to be able to use cannabis, and they weren't participating in treatment. They were failing and weren't being eligible to be able to be in these programs. And when it came down to seeing if people were interested, young people, we had people flocking to the program saying, I want to do that because cannabis was helpful. And we hear and see that in the same way in a recovery setting. And so our journey to get here has involved a bunch of kind of challenging hurdles to overcome internally in terms of kind of the rhetoric, or not the rhetoric, but the sense of what treatment and recovery should be. You must be abstinence. A drug is a drug is a drug. And I would argue that is an oppressive statement when it comes to treatment. Individuals should be able to and can define what their recovery is. And all of us know that the difference between fentanyl and methamphetamine and cannabis is apples and oranges, as we heard earlier. And so the opportunity to provide safe, appropriately prescribed or authorized cannabis with the clinical supports that are available from folks like Tracy Bergman here who's in the room, and the supports of Darlene and Cheryl Doolin, creates an environment that is about stability. It's about meeting people where they're at. And now we're seeing the evidence of research showing that our intuition, our instincts, that this could work and be a complementary form of treatment and therapy in a recovery setting actually matters. So I just want to really acknowledge the efforts of Michael and his courageous leadership in doing this work, acknowledging the supportive community that we felt in the creation of this. And I want to thank, most importantly, all of these gentlemen and women that are part of the Maverick that inspire us in our work, where we're still facing on the streets, doing harm reduction services, seeing people feeling so destitute and lost, is that all it takes is to go to the Maverick and to see these gentlemen and women and folks feeling like their lives matter and feeling a sense of safety and security, and now becoming part of the helping world that we so desperately need, is more people willing to come forward. The peers are their answer to this opiate crisis, and you're going to hear these guys speak just so passionately and so articulately about their journey that really, I think, is the true meaning of what we do, is when we hear these voices from the people that we care about. I want to recognize my colleague Darlene, who's the Director of Recovery Services, who sometimes I think she thinks I'm a little out of my mind in terms of what we're going to do next, but she has literally been the champion for this incredibly relevant program that is so diverse and inclusive. And I want to thank the whole steering committee for everything you've done to support us in our work. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. He stole my thunder. I was going to point out Darlene. Where are you, Darlene? It's dark out there. You're somewhere in here. I did want to recognize she is on our Maverick Project team. She's at all of our meetings, and I think she keeps Bob in place. It's perfect. Really great. I wanted to put a little bit of information about you. Is that okay? She's a registered social worker, and also a lead in the Maverick Supportive Recovery and Center and Career Program, supports individuals with bloodborne infections. She's championed services for the 2SL LGBTQ plus community. She's really a vital force in contributing to the Maverick Project research team, and she's our strength, and it gives us some really what's going on in the front lines, and keeps us focused. And I just really appreciate you and your ongoing contributions. So just wanted to give you a hand on that one. Thank you. All right. Can you hear me okay? We're doing okay? Okay.